When we first came to Winnipeg, we moved twice, and then we moved to this project in another part of the city, and there was this lady, Miss Mary. She was about 7 years old, and she would walk at least 5 kilometers once a week to come in and minister to the poorer kids of the neighborhood. And so she was the lady that introduced us to Jesus. And from then on, as a kid, I kind of just believed and I ran with it. And when I was about 7 years old, I gave my life to Jesus in my living room through her assistance.
You know, it's amazing, Jorge, that, I've talked to so many people, including yourself, that have had an experience as a child.
Yeah.
But then other distractions come along, and by the time you're a teenager, and again, the background of your family situation, addiction in the home, you kind of went off track.
Yes. Yeah, when you're a child, you don't really realize the differences. You think this is normal. You think everybody lives like this. You think, everybody has an alcoholic father, or everybody lives in this kind of setting, or drives this kind of car. But as you kind of get older, for me, it happened when I was about in grade 4, when I'd be about, 10 years old or something like that, and you begin to realize differences. For example, we cleaned the movie theaters, and sometimes we would go at midnight and clean till maybe 2, 3 in the morning, then I'd go to sleep and then go to school. I knew everyone wasn't like this, but I didn't think I was different. But as I matured and grew, I began realizing, hey, we do live much poorer. My house isn't like your house, and my father isn't like your father, and your dad doesn't leave he leaves us, and things like that. And then as you grow up in poverty, you start looking for ways, well, how do I live like that?
So that's how you then ended up getting into drugs?
Exactly.
Into selling drugs?
Yeah.
It's a quick way to make some money?
So my sister actually began dating somebody who was a young man, and he would come and visit my mom and bring her flowers. He took us to Pizza Hut one time. I'd never been to Pizza Hut. He drove a nice car on rims, and one day I just asked him, what do you do for a living? What do you do? And he let me know I sell drugs, and immediately I knew this is what's gonna change my life. This is what I'm going to do.
Did you think it was wrong at the time, or it's just the way of the neighborhood?
Exactly. I thought, this is the way of the neighborhood. This is the way out, at least for the meantime. I wasn't taught much about, going to school. It was more just work. To my father, it was just work and things will work out. But my father worked 3 jobs. My mom worked. We still didn't live good. We still didn't have what we wanted to have. And so to me, work wasn't the answer. It was, I got to look for a different route. And so when I saw that, I said, that's what I'm going to do. And I remember being about 13, 14 years old when I decided that's what I'm going to do one day.
By 16, you'd been kicked out of school, 2 drug charges. Were you trying to prove something?
Yeah, so I believe that, especially as young people, we look to something to become someone. Some people find that in sports. Some people find that in academics. Some people find that in the good community and have in religion, right? For myself, I looked to something that would give me, a kind of power, a kind of respect, because I was, bullied as a child for my name being called Jorge. My height, I was small. And I said, I need something that people are going to look past that. And for me, the answer was something on the streets, becoming a somebody on the streets, so that didn't matter how tall you were, what your name was, where you come from. If you lived up to it, you were respected.
Now, it's interesting, in your book, too, there's this battle of your conscience that's going back and forth. You want to stop doing the drugs. You want to quit selling the drugs. You want to quit stealing, including your, family members' vehicles, things like that. But you kept going back to it.
Yeah.
So by the time you're 17, you're on your 3rd drug charge.
Yeah.
You're upsetting your mother and your sisters, who you loved.
Yeah.
But just kept going back.
Yeah, as you read my book and you realize, how come this guy doesn't just stop? Because when we're looking from an outsider perspective, it's like telling someone who's addicted to smoking, just stop smoking, man, or whatever it may be. But it's not that easy when you're in the lifestyle. For myself, that was the only lifestyle I knew, When my father had disowned me when I was about 14 years old, so it gave me full reign to do what I wanted. And so I didn't know a different way. I was kicked out of school. I thought this is the only way to make it. So when I would try to change, I had just moments of it, and then I'd realize my reality, but my only way out is this way. So I believe. This is something that I believed, and I think many people believe that this is it. I'm in deep, and this is the only way I can continue living. I wasn't shown a different way of living at that time in my life.
But you did love your family.
Absolutely.
Your mom and your sister is very important. So not only are you getting in trouble, you brought trouble on your family. In fact, your house got shot up in Winnipeg.
Yeah. That's how it is on the streets. Is problems just keep escalating and escalating, and there was different rock bottoms that you would say, wasn't this a rock bottom? And they were rock bottoms, but I continued going, and yeah, my mother's house was shot up. And that kind of really changed things up in my household, right? The room that got shot up the most was where my nephew slept, and I had thought they had, gotten shot, till I found out by the grace of God, every night that summer, they had slept over. And that one night, they didn't sleep over. And that's the room that got shot up, right? And it's just like, wow, thank you, God, that in my foolishness, you still look out for my family that I'm involving. Like, our decisions don't only impact us, right? Like, my family had nothing to do with my street problems. Now their life is at risk. My mother was home when my house got shot. I had to tell my mom to get into the basement. I woke her up at 2 in the morning. Mom, go to the basement, She was in panic. Why? I said, Mom, just trust me. And when my house got shot, it sounded like semi-trucks were hitting it, and my mom's screaming. I'm wondering what's going on. And that's just what occurred in life, right?
So where finally was the breaking point? Because, you had the situation where, the Crown prosecutor saying, keep this guy locked up.
Yeah.
He is a danger to society.
Yeah.
And there had been many times when you said, that's it, I'm not doing this anymore. You'd keep going back. But your sister tapped you on the shoulder and says, let's go to church.
Yeah. I believe that, can one certain rock bottom change you? Absolutely. Some guys, stubborn guys like myself, we need many. And the Lord found me at a place where I'd given up, man. I'd given up. I clearly didn't have my life figured out. That day, as you read in my story, my father had come back in my life and gotten out of my life in the same day after being out for many years. And I was just at a place where I was open. And while I sat at that table wondering what's going on with my life, two things spoke to me. The devil spoke to me saying, hey, man, you should, or your conscience saying, you should go back to your old lifestyle. But at the same time, my sister tapped me on the shoulder saying, do you want to go to church? And I remember looking at her being like, why are you telling me that? And she says, hey, I'm just telling you. I'm going.
You want to come?
Yeah. And something came upon me that I was convicted and convinced that I was going to go. And I remember that going through that day, and my friends were saying, because it was on a Saturday, it was happening Saturday evening, saying, hey, Jorge, are you coming out tonight? And I was like, yeah, I just got this thing to go to. And they're like, well, what thing? and they were like, well, can we come? And I was like, no, you can't come. I'll call you after. and so I went there. And I remember wondering, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? It was a bunch of kids there. It was like a youth rally for a church. There was a bunch of kids. And I said, I don't belong here. Why am I here? But inside, I was screaming like, man, I hope somebody talks to me. There's so much inside of me that is just killing me, I want to change. I don't know how. I'm fed up. And I remember walking to the washroom to kind of prolong me leaving, hoping someone would talk to me, and no one did.
Right. And before we get to that point, because this is very significant, but had you thought back to that Jorge, that 7-year-old boy, Miss Mary, accepting Jesus? Now you've been down this pretty rough road.
Yeah.
And here you are at church and feeling this conviction.
Oh, absolutely. When you talk about what was that pull, that struggle, that was, my relationship of knowing that I know better than this. I believe in God, but I don't know how to follow. I don't know what that looks like. And so now in this moment, what got me there is the faith that whatever faith I had that built me up to be open to even going to this, right? And so when I'm at this event and now I'm leaving, I say, no one talk to me, I'm leaving. right? Okay, conscience, you're happy. I did what you wanted me to do. Now I'm going back to my old lifestyle.
You're going to go back sell drugs.
Exactly, but I don't want to. But I am, because to me, that's my answer, right? And I cross paths with the pastor. And he says, I'd like to get the chance to talk to you sometime. And I looked inside, I said, why do you want to talk to me? You don't know me. But the words that came out were like, when, now? And so we looked for a classroom because it was kind of out of school, and they're all locked. And I'm like, okay, good, because a piece of me didn't want to do it either. But we end up going to my car. And in my car, Greg, I'm in the driver, he's in the passenger, and just like a torrent, man, like a storm, like it just, everything came out. My whole life from when I was a kid to what happened earlier that day with my father and me wanting to go back again, and it just all came out. And he sat there for 2 hours and just listening to me. And he said something, although the words danger to society have always rung in my ears, this has been even louder.
Yeah, this is better, man.
This is even louder. He looked at me and he said, Jorge, one day you're going to work for God. And he said, one day you're going to tell your story and change people's lives.
It changed your life in a dramatic way. You now are working in prisons. You've just transitioned from Edmonton back to your hometown of Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I know you've been doing work with inmates. You have a real heart and passion for that.
Yeah.
You've written a wonderful book, Danger to Society, a story of bad decisions, followed by a great decision. So Jorge, thank you for coming and sharing your story on 100 Huntley Street. You know, the reality is that we've all made bad decisions. I've made them. Jorge, as he's talked about, has made them. Some get people in real trouble. Others, maybe not the consequences. But all of us have made bad decisions. And one thing I can tell you, and I know Jorge's friend, is that his life has been transformed.
Yeah.
But he was in a bad place. And you may be in a bad place. And please know that there are amazing people we have on our prayer lines. Just like that pastor that took this young man and they spent 2 hours or more in a car, and Jorge had an opportunity just to let it go. Maybe that's you today. You need to let it go. Call our prayer lines, 1-866-273-4444. Amazing people that will talk to you.